Hello from Baristakos, Hamburg. Today we're looking at a machine that is probably a bit unknown, namely the Xenia dual boiler. Xenia and their machines are really not very present. Why we think that's actually unjustified, you'll see shortly. The first impression of this machine, even though it comes with a rusty casing, is actually quite classic. What's interesting is what's inside it. And there's a lot of innovative technology inside it. I'll explain that a bit more in a moment. And beyond that, there's the possibility to change, optimize, and customize this machine. You can customize this machine down to the smallest detail to fit your wishes. And I have to say, there is no other machine in this form and price range that offers this. To be honest, I'm not aware of any machine that is this customizable. Xenia is, in the truest sense of the word, a manufacturer. It's actually a very, very small, fine manufacturer. We visited them last year, 2024, in the summer after having some machines in home courses and were incredibly surprised. We had heard the name before, but we had never actually held such a machine in our hands. And after we had them in 2 home courses back to back, we said, okay, we need to go there, we need to check this out, because these machines, which were still 2-circuit systems, were really interesting. What's especially interesting is how Xenia handles information. I don't know any manufacturer that is this transparent about their developments. This means you can read a ton about how these machines were developed and what individual components are used in them. As I said, you can read about it on the website, but they are also very active in the coffee network. Xenia is currently developing a new machine, and you can read about every stage of development on the coffee network. You can not only see the successes they achieve there, but you can also see the failures and the wrong paths they take. They report on this very openly, and I find that incredibly interesting. Above all, they also report on possible solutions and approaches to solving the problem. This way you can really get to grips with the development of Xenia's machines and read up on them. And we find that extremely interesting because, as I said, we haven't been able to find anything like this anywhere else. There might be something similar with Descent. We're currently in closer contact with them because a lot is being reported about the machines there, a lot about the philosophy and the thoughts on how to achieve a good espresso. Because Descent has open source software, so anyone can basically get involved. As I said, there is an incredible amount of information about the machines and their development available in the coffee community and on the website. And not only that, you also get very, very extensive support. That means you'll get maintenance instructions for the individual components. So you can really dive deep into the machine yourself if you want to and take care of its maintenance. You can even download circuit diagrams, you get new software upgrades through the website, and so on and so forth. And if you're interested, you can really lose yourself for hours on the website and dive into every little detail. As I just mentioned, our experience with this machine motivated us to visit Xenia and see what's behind it, because the company is really unusual. And as I said, we set off for Berlin last summer. Xenia is located in a suburb of Berlin, and we visited them and chatted for a long time with Holger about the machines, coffee, and so on. The result for us was that we really wanted to have the machine for testing. This machine, which is with us for a short period and which we have been given for testing, is actually Xenia's test machine. With this machine, they test new components and new software developments. A lot is happening in the area of software development at Xenia, so they're always trying to introduce new components and changes that ultimately enhance the experience of this machine. And of course, we were happy that Xenia was willing to provide us with this machine. Other manufacturers do that too. Unfortunately, we still can't afford all the machines we test. We invested a lot last year, and our channel is not yet at the point where we can generate enough revenue to actually buy every machine. If you want us to test even more machines for you in the future, it helps us if you subscribe to our channel and watch our videos. That way, we'll be able to buy more machines as well. That is our goal, and it is a lot of fun for us. But regardless of whether we buy the machines or are provided with them, we always make a point of testing them the way we think we want to test them. And we also claim the right to always share our opinions with you in an unfiltered manner. But now let's talk about this machine. As already mentioned, Xenia is a small manufacturer, and this is reflected in the ordering process. This means you can't buy this machine in any store. Xenia only has direct sales, and the ordering process at Xenia is set up in such a way that you have to configure the machines yourself. This means you can customize this machine down to the smallest detail, exactly how you want it. From the casing to the handles to the levers to individual technical components. It's incredibly versatile. It takes a little while to get through it, but in the end, you'll get the machine that you've personally put together and that you want just the way it is. The price of this machine is roughly, as mentioned, dependent on whether you want a tilting lever, what type of wood you want, which internal components you prefer, what lights, and what switches. You can customize all of that, and with this price, it is roughly on the same level as the Lama Zocco Micra, the ECM Synchronica, two of the Rocket Dual boiler machines, or the Lelette Bianca and similar machines. There is one difference, and we'll get to that shortly. When we look at the inside of the machine, or rather, in terms of the options and possibilities for adjusting the machine, because none of these other machines offer that in this way. For a dual boiler, it's a relatively compact machine. It has a width of 27 centimeters, a height of 30 centimeters, and a depth without the portafilter of about 43.5 centimeters, and weighs about 23 to 25 kilos. The minimum heating time for this machine is stated by the manufacturer to be 6 minutes. However, the manufacturer recommends using about 10 minutes before you pull your first espresso. And there are interesting features like, for example, an automatic flushing. This means you can set in the software whether you want to run a flash or a double flash during the heating process, or if you want to do it manually. The water tank is removable from both sides and has a volume of about 2.2 liters. The good thing is it has a sort of last shot function, which means that when the water tank is empty or about to run out, it will still pull your last espresso until the very end. The drip tray is divided into two parts. You have this protective cover here, and then you have a plastic tray that you can remove, which has a manageable capacity of about 509 ml. Instead of the tank, you can also connect the machine to a direct water supply. You will need to specify that during the ordering process. The distance between the drip tray and the portafilter is about 11.5 centimeters. This means that you can comfortably fit larger cups along with a scale underneath. If you have a Bluetooth-enabled scale, you can connect it to the machine and use a kind of volumetric control. Because normally the machine has a time control, but in conjunction with the integrated scale or connected scale, you can use both. There are always different opinions about what is better, whether time control on a machine is better or volumetric control is better. However, volumetrics can never be that precise because you always have the problem that depending on the type of coffee and how you painted, a different amount of water will naturally remain in the puck, and therefore volumetrics is never 100% precise. We personally definitely prefer time control because we've found that a 3, 4 or even a maximum of 5 seconds longer or shorter extraction time can make a much bigger difference in flavor. A volumetrics where we may have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grams more or less in the cup. In our opinion, that doesn't have as much impact as an exact extraction time. That's of course a matter of perspective. Maybe you have had different experiences with that. We definitely prefer time control, as I mentioned. With the machine, both options are possible, because when we connect a scale via Bluetooth, we can essentially use volumetric control. In an upcoming software version, which we unfortunately don't have yet, it will even be possible to use flow rate control. That's a slightly different way for you to precisely determine how you want to extract your coffee and what your final flavor should be. The Brew Group is a proprietary development by Xenia, and it has the special feature of having heating rods installed. This also results in a quick heating time of somewhere between 6 and 10 minutes. And additionally, it is equipped with a copper bridge that goes from the boiler to the Brew Group. This means you get a continuous heating of the Brew Group, partly through the heating rods that keep bringing the Brew Group back to temperature, and as I mentioned, through this copper bridge that transfers heat directly from the boiler to the Brew Group. An aspect that is not entirely insignificant for me personally is the type of bayonet. Here you have a classic e-bayonet connection, which means you are compatible with other accessories. You can use different baskets and you can use different shower screens. The silicone seals are the same, I personally find that quite significant because some manufacturers do make portafilters of that size, but they use a different bayonet connection. I always wonder what the point of that is because it makes you significantly less compatible. Due to its compact size, it has a vibration pump installed, which is very quiet and not a rotary pump. The cup tray is not heated separately. Instead, it is automatically heated by the two boilers. Depending on the insulation you order for the boilers, the heating of the cups will be stronger or less strong. Since this is a dual boiler, we obviously have a steam wand, in this case a cool touch steam wand, and a hot water outlet. As I mentioned before, there are an incredible number of parameters on the machine that can be changed and adjusted. Some of the things you can also influence from the outside, specifically through these toggle switches here. For example, you can decide whether you want to have the steam boiler on or if you want to operate the machine without the steam boiler. And you can even control a kind of manual pre-infusion via this toggle switch. Even though you don't see a display here, the machine has a PED control and you can operate and change it via your normal web browser. We'll just go through the whole thing briefly now because there are so many options and parameters that can be changed and adjusted, and we actually need to make 2 or 3 films about this machine, especially about the setting options, so that we can understand it all. But that would be a bit too much for this context. Currently, there is still no dedicated app. We had to get used to the fact that you interact with the machine through the browser, but in the end it works just like an app. And once you dig through it a bit, it's actually quite clear and easy to understand. As you can see here, you can log into the machine through your browser just like normal, and you can change all sorts of parameters that you can possibly imagine. At the beginning, you'll see the overview, where the most important parameters are displayed. The second menu is the scale grinder menu, which means you can connect a scale, a Bluetooth scale. And in connection with this, you basically have a kind of flow meter. Then you can also set which grinder you have. Currently, there is a pre-programmed grinder, a Eureka XL, with an arrow ring on it. You can adjust this ring very, very precisely to set the grind level of your Eureka. And in connection with the next menu item, the assistant helps you find the right grind level for the machine. That means it gives you tips on how many notches to adjust the grind level and in which direction. The next point concerns the machine. Then you can adjust various things. Adjusting at the brew group, and it goes so far that you can even set the temperature hysteresis. As I mentioned, the machine has 2 heating elements, and the so-called temperature hysteresis determines at what temperature deviation the heating elements turn back on or off. And just like that, you can adjust the temperatures in the boiler. Then there's an option that's very interesting. These are the so-called scripts. You can influence various things and parameters. You can change just about anything. The machine is capable of, and you can add the scripts in the order you like. You can change them, you can adjust the pump pressure, you can change the flow rate, and so on and so forth. So there are an insane number of settings options. You can of course save the scripts, and you can later assign them to the individual switches. You can work with a paddle through your program. That means you can easily move it around using the iPad. For example, I start with a brewing pressure. Starting from 18%, then I slowly increase the brew pressure to 100% and let it drop again at the end of the extraction, just like with a leveler machine. I don't have to do all of this manually. I can also edit it in curves. And with this script here, it's still in the beta version, but it works. So I can set it myself, how the pressure should be. I can build myself a leveler or whatever. Of course, I can save all of this in a script as usual. Then I can view it in script version and can assign it to the switches accordingly. Even adjusting the PED parameters is possible. So if you have a deeper understanding of it and want to make changes, you can even make adjustments in there. Of course, you can not only influence the temperature of the brew kettle, but also that of the steam kettle. You can influence the pump. That means you can influence the pump pressure yourself, either through a script like before. Here we have the switch layout. We can assign 2 different scripts to each toggle direction. And you can, of course, also record all of this, update the firmware, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's also available in different languages. That means you see it's incredibly extensive what you can influence here. You can't tell from the outside what the machine is like at all. And the Xenia is pretty much the only machine we know of where you can intervene so deeply in the system. As I said, even down to the PED settings, I haven't encountered that with any other machine so far. We tested the machine thoroughly, as we do with all our machine tests, and one area of focus is power consumption. And there it shows itself more in the lower area. That means when you pull your first espresso, you have a consumption of 0.205 kilowatt-hour, and for your first cappuccino, you need a total of 0.224 kilowatts. You can reduce this consumption a little bit if you say, okay, I just want to drink an espresso, then I can, as I said, switch off the boiler, the steam boiler, directly from the outside and don't even have to start it up. In other words, I consume a little less power. Just like we experienced last year with Xenia in the discussions with Holger Dreisig on site with them, they place a lot of emphasis on temperature control, and they have really achieved a lot in that area. They experimented for a long time until they managed to make the temperature control very, very precise. We'll show you this in our chart here. What's interesting is that the machine reaches the desired temperature very, very quickly, much faster than traditional brew groups. One reason why the temperature reaches the desired level so quickly at the beginning of the brew is probably because there are heating elements installed in the brew group, and we have a copper bridge from the boiler to the brew group, because both keep the brew group at a more constant temperature. We've noticed something similar ourselves because we're currently building a machine just for fun. We'll introduce that to you as well. If we keep the brew group heated continuously and try to maintain a certain temperature, the entire extraction temperature will also be significantly more stable. And above all, after quickly reaching the desired temperature, the temperature remains very, very, very stable. How did they achieve that? The machine uses a small brew boiler of 0.27 liters. And it's important how the water is fed into the brew boiler. You achieve higher temperature stability by preheating the water before feeding it into the boiler. It works, so to speak, a bit like with the linear migra. In this case, the supply line to the extraction boiler is wrapped around the steam boiler. This means that the water is already heating up while it's flowing into the extraction boiler. The problem with the migra is that if you don't turn on the steam boiler, you don't have this function. With this machine, it's a bit different. It's solved because the water is introduced into the boiler through a rod-shaped heating element at the bottom. That means it gets preheated, which results in a significantly more consistent water temperature. It works similarly with the Profitec Go, by the way. They also experimented for a long time on how to feed the water in so that the too cool water doesn't cool down all the water right away, but rather to achieve a consistent temperature from the very beginning. And that is also reflected in our Profitec Go temperature test. The machine has a deviation of about 0.2 to 0.3 degrees. Just check out our video on that, I'll link it for you. Here too, Xenia is very, very transparent, as you can find all the information about how they solved this problem directly on the website or in the Coffee Network. For those who want to dive a bit deeper into the topic of temperature measurement, there is an interesting article about the issues with measuring using standard portafilters. Because especially at the beginning of the extraction, there are some problems. We have also spent a bit more time on this topic. We are not using the portafilters that are standard on the market. We have made some adjustments to ours, adjusted in a way that we believe works a bit better. That means we use different materials to reduce resistance, to simulate the pucks, and we have also built in a flow control, so that we can vary our flow during the test as we think we need it. Before we test and drink the first espresso with the machine, we want to quickly show you how the steam frothing works. Hello. As you have seen, everything works wonderfully. The advantage of this machine is that you can determine the steam pressure yourself. You can adjust it as we showed you earlier. So if you're not quite experienced yet and want a bit more time to froth your milk, just lower the steam pressure a bit. Conversely, you can increase the steam pressure. Of course, you can increase it if you're already experienced and say, okay, I just want to froth my milk in maybe 10, 15 or 20 seconds at most. Turn up the steam pressure, there's more power, you can build up faster. Now, of course, I want to test how the espresso tastes that comes from the machine. We have now set our machine to have a reduced pump power, specifically at only 70%. That means you will also see that it takes significantly longer for the first drop to come. And we have also programmed it so that at the end of the extraction, the pump power gradually decreases. This means that the extraction will run off slower and gentler. We're now using the time control. We've set it up beforehand accordingly. And by reducing the pump power, we need to let the time run a bit longer so that we can eliminate some of the acidity that we achieve this way. We now have a brewing ratio of 1 to 2.3. That's wonderful for this coffee, I can't say otherwise. And now I'm going to give it a try. Excellent, great. So we've managed to balance the acidity and bitterness wonderfully, so that neither one has taken over. Especially by reducing the pump power. In the end, we let the extraction taper off gently. We have a wonderful body and we have the chocolatey notes that I like to have in this coffee here. So we can wonderfully control our coffee by influencing the pump power and the pressure build up and drop just the way we like it. And that changes a lot about the coffee. It's just fun when you have the opportunity to try it out. Let's get to the conclusion. Who is the machine suitable for? Does it have advantages? Does it have disadvantages? It is definitely in the range where you can also get other high-quality dual boiler machines. It's all pretty much the same. The advantage of this machine is that you can really customize it in an incredible number of parameters, and I don't know of any other machine in this price range that offers this kind of feature. Another advantage of the machine is that you can customize it right from the factory. That means you can put it together just the way you personally want it. One downside is that you have to customize the machine. That means you have to go through the entire ordering process until you get to the machine you want. And unfortunately, it's the case these days that most people have little patience and don't really want to go through this long process. The problem is that Xenia has a direct sales model, and it's exclusively a direct sales model. You can't see the machine anywhere. You can't just go to a store and buy it. Occasionally, Xenia has stock machines that are already pre-configured, although you can still change them afterwards. But unfortunately, it's set up so unfavorably in this area that you really have to look closely and figure out how the machines being offered there are configured. I think Xenia would do themselves a big favor if they made that a lot simpler. I already mentioned that unfortunately there isn't a showroom or anything like that where you can check out the machines. Interestingly, it seems that there is a dedicated fan base of Xenia owners who offer to let you check out their machines. You can also find information about that on the website. Design is of course a matter of taste. I can't say anything about that. You have to decide for yourselves whether you like the machine or not. The machine is really solidly built, and the same is reflected in the technology. There's nothing where we could identify any flaws. And who is this machine for? Of course, it's for those who can afford it and are willing to spend that much money on an espresso machine. And especially if you enjoy making some changes and experimenting a bit, you can do that wonderfully with this machine. And it's definitely better than other dual boilers in this price range. After we really tested it thoroughly, we can only say that the machine is truly solid and good, and it's a lot of fun to use. However, I personally miss a display. That means I actually want to know my shot time, even though I programmed it in beforehand. That's not an issue to do, but if I want to work manually and play around a bit, I would really like to see the shot side. And it would also be nice to see other parameters somehow on a kind of display. I also find these switches a bit flimsy. The interesting thing is that they each have a dual function in their respective direction. That means I can press right for a long time, I can press right for a short time and have a different function, and I can also customize this function of holding it down long or short. That means I can assign scripts to it, I can assign specific functions to it. I find that really exciting. As I said, I would find it better if these switches were a bit bigger for my big fingers. One thing I would also wish for with the machine is a special app that allows us to adjust all the parameters. It works wonderfully through the browser, but it would definitely be a wish and an advantage for this machine if there were an iPad or Android app that allowed you to adjust all the parameters. Yes, that should be it for this test of the Xenia Dual Boiler. Just write in the comments what you think about it, how you see what we've presented to you here, how you view this variety of functions, and how you feel about the design. We are very, very curious to hear what impression you have of the machine. Until our next segment, we have some interesting things in the pipeline, like new machines and new grinders that are coming to the market now. We wish you to enjoy good coffee. Thank you for watching and see you next time.